A reading from Mark's Gospel, chapter 13, beginning at the first verse. And as Jesus came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what wonderful stones and what wonderful buildings." And Jesus said to him, "Do you see these great buildings? There will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." As he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" And Jesus began to say to them, "See that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. And when you hear of wars and rumours of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. These are but the beginning of the birth pains." Well, I wonder what you make of this passage. It's quite a startling passage in many ways, with its talks of tribulations, the abomination of desolation, the false Christs. And it's rich stuff, it's strong stuff, it's alarming, to be honest. And well, you have to ask yourself the question, what is the point of it all? Why was Jesus telling the disciples this, and what was he hoping to achieve? Well, it could be that he's warning the disciples of what would come and providing them with a means to escape. These are the things to watch out for, and when you see these things happening, then flee, then fly, because then you'll escape all of this problems, all of this abomination of desolations and tribulations and the rest of it. But then we do see later on in the chapter Jesus saying to his disciples, "They will deliver you to councils, and you will be beaten in synagogues." This then isn't a call to escape, because they will, Jesus predicts, suffer the tribulations that he's speaking about. Well, then perhaps the point of it is to give a clue as to timing, so that they may prepare themselves and they may fortify themselves for what might happen. But one has to say that if you look at the history of the church, it's littered with people who've tried to predict the time of all these things, and yet Jesus hasn't returned. In fact, Jesus himself says concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. So it's not about timing, and it's not about trying to get the disciples to escape what's happening. The point isn't to avoid suffering. The point isn't to give a timetable. Yes, many of the things that Jesus predicted have happened, with the destruction of the temple, for instance, in AD 70. But nonetheless, other events have yet to occur. There is a point, though, that Jesus has in mind here. And it's perhaps best to remember where Jesus is when he's saying this, because he's up there overlooking Jerusalem, and he's about to go to the cross. We're not that far in the chronology here of this gospel from Good Friday, and therefore people will shortly see his defeat, his humiliation, his execution. The Sanhedrin, the ruling Jewish council, will surely think that they've got rid of him, this troublesome teacher from Galilee. The Romans, with their long experience of performing crucifixions, have no doubt that this crucifixion will end like all the other ones, in death. And yet, you can't have a resurrection without a death. You can't have Easter without Good Friday. And so it seems to me that what Jesus is saying is that tribulation, when it comes, should not be equated with defeat. Tribulation is part, for whatever reason, of the purposes of God. You have to have a crucifixion before you can get a resurrection. And the point of passages like this one is to give you hope. Is to say that when you suffer, it's not as if God has lost control. It's not if that somehow you're now outside of his scope or his realm. Right will out. Justice will be done. And in much of the Christian life, The calling is simply to persevere, to keep on going, to not overcome and have victory all the time, but rather to keep following God doggedly, wherever that may lead you. And passages like this one are there to encourage you to live not in some vague future hope, but to realise that even when you suffer now, that God is not only with you, but God will also be victorious through all of this.